Live from Atlanta, Georgia, it's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through passion and purpose. My name is Zach Ballinger. I'm your host. Thank you guys so much for joining. Two ways you can join the show. You can always email me before any episode, zach@zachballinger.com. Get a hold with me there. You can interact with the show live via YouTube. So if you're out there listening, and you happen to be come across us, put those comments into the comment section of questions. We'll make sure to get them to my guest and myself. Without further ado, thank you so much for the show.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, Gina, you had a unique former career. I would love to learn more about it. You were actually in the FBI. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, for 22 years, I was an FBI agent, and later in my career, I was an assistant special agent in charge. So I've worked everything from Asian organized crime to counterterrorism, and my last assignment was being in charge of cyber and computer forensics for FBI Los Angeles.
Wow, that's so cool. So now how do you become, because there's a lot of millennials or high school students or college students. How do you get into the FBI?
Well, it's a long process. I don't think a lot of people know, but the average age going through the FBI Academy is 31 years old. So we have a lot of people in their 30s. And I can tell you, I went through basic training in the Army when I was in my early 20s, and it was a lot different running and jumping and hiking and doing all those things going through the FBI Academy. But usually people are in their second career and sometimes even their third career. And it's a long process where you go online to fbi.gov, you put your application in, and they have several phases of the interviewing process, as well as taking a physical fitness test, getting a polygraph, background investigation, all of those things. And when I went through in 1996, fewer than 1% of all the applicants actually made it in. I'm not sure what the numbers are now, but it's a very competitive position to get into.
Wow. So, if you're being realistic about it, probably somebody graduating high school is not going to be able to apply and immediately get into the FBI. There's got to be, experience, correct?
Exactly. So you have to, I think the beginning age is 23 years old. I don't think I've ever known of a 23-year-old FBI agent. Usually, like I said, it's a lot older. But you need to have at least 3 years experience. You have to be a U.S. citizen. If you speak another language, that's great. That'll help you. And right now, they're definitely looking for people who have some sort of information technology skill set. That's one of the things. But they also, the FBI also takes accountants and attorneys. We had a zookeeper in our class. So you just never know what they're looking for. We want to be able to have somebody who has some sort of expertise in pretty much everything at the FBI.
So that's interesting when you say like the 3 years experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be as a uniformed officer or a someone in the military necessarily, right? It could be somebody that's in computer science.
Absolutely, or attorneys or accountants. We had 2 PhDs in a class that I was a counselor for. So yes, so people from all walks of life, and they train you at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia, how to become an FBI agent. That's about a 6-month class. And you live there at the academy and all of that. But it's not just a career, it's definitely a calling. When you're finished with the day, you don't put your badge and credentials on a shelf and you don't have to worry about it. It's a 24-hour passion. So you definitely want to make it your passion if you go into the FBI.
So a lot of people think of the FBI as field officers, the people that are investigating criminal activities or on the ground. Now, if you were wanting to head towards that passion, you would definitely need to take your experience, I would assume, into law enforcement, correct?
Not necessarily, no. Like I said, we had a zookeeper going through the FBI Academy. So we will teach you how to be an FBI agent, but we just want skills from all walks of life. And that's the reason why the FBI is the premier law enforcement agency in the world, is because the people that we bring into the FBI are just so skilled and so experienced and so many different things other than just law enforcement.
So unique. I did not know that. So very interesting. And then I'm assuming, since you said about, when you were going through it, about 1% of the applicants actually make it in, that it is rather a rigorous process to get into, right? Just because you hear from somebody, you've got to go through this entire application process. Plus, you've got to finish the training. I mean, did you see people at Quantico actually get weeded out there and had to be sent back home, or how did
Yes.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. And usually by the time you make it to Quantico, I mean, you've been vetted, and the field office that is going through the application process, as well as our headquarters, they're pretty confident in the candidates that go there, because it is a very expensive process to get a full-blown background investigation and all of the other things that you have to get through, and plus, moving you to Quantico and paying your salary. So yeah, so they want to make sure that you're definitely what we're looking for by the time you get to the academy. But there are reasons, whether that it's a judgment reason, or you can't qualify with a firearm, or you can't put handcuffs on someone. There are different reasons why, but usually judgment is an issue. We have to have people with stellar judgment at the FBI.
So why choose this career? Like, what made you decide that you wanted to? You said it's kind of like a higher calling. Why did you want to do this, and what did you love about it?
Well, originally I wanted to work for the CIA, and I spent 6 years in the Army as a counterintelligence agent, doing that type of work and getting my 4-year degree, because you have to have a 4-year degree to work for the CIA or the FBI. And then the opportunity for the FBI came up. But I'm very big on serving my country. I'm a very patriotic person, and I want to help people. And I just thought that this would be a really great way to do it. Plus, I wanted to travel, and I wanted to do something that was just sort of off the beaten path, not necessarily something that everybody else was doing. And I got so many great experiences from it. It was just a tremendous 28-year career.
It's amazing. Thank you for your service. We really appreciate anybody that does that. So, back up a little bit. You did say that you do need a 4-year degree to work in the FBI. So that might be good for the high school students to know that you can't just graduate high school and apply for the FBI. You do have to have a 4-year degree, correct?
Right. Yes, plus 3 years work experience on top of that. Plus, you have to be able to get through the background investigation, and that is so important. Whenever I go out and I speak, I'm on the board of directors for the Girl Scouts, and whenever I'm speaking to girls or high school students, I always tell them that you definitely want to start now. You want to start with making good decisions. You don't want to get into drugs or alcohol or any of those things. You don't want to post inappropriate things online or say inappropriate things online, because I think we've seen over the last several years so many people get hung up on things that they have said that is offensive or possibly offensive to other people, or deemed in an inappropriate way. So I always tell high school students, start your good decision making now, because they'll look at all of that. And in fact, all employers now, if they're not looking at social media for the people that they hire, they're definitely making a big mistake.
Great point. I talked to it about through the lies of LinkedIn, where even college students, millennials, even some, folks in their 50s and 60s, everything's negative on LinkedIn. And there's an algorithm where that pops up into your feed. And the more you see that, you're kind of surprised by it. And guess what? As people see it, it pops up more in their feed. Mm-hmm. So make sure you keep everything professional. And I like even your frame of mind, because you're saying at a young age, those comments that you make at 14, 15, 16 years old could even maybe disqualify you from an application process of your dream job.
Absolutely. That is so true. And I've seen it happen where people make mistakes, or they, it's just, now is the time for those folks to start with a clean slate and not have to have those uncomfortable conversations when you're getting a polygraph and working, trying to get into your dream job as an FBI agent.
So I can kind of imagine this question. It probably sounds a little crazy that I'm asking this, but I think, even though you have a calling for the FBI and the passion for it, what was some of the difficulties that people need to know? I mean, obviously, I can kind of think of some, but for you and asking you, what's the hardest part about it?
Just seeing the underground of society that's very, very dark, working with criminals and seeing the consequences of their actions. So, like I said, I worked organized crime and worked cases for murder for hire and extortions and loan sharking. So, I mean, just really working in an environment that isn't something that I grew up with, for sure. And then also terrorism. I mean, responding to terrorist attacks and cyber hacks and seeing the consequences of those types of things up close and personal. So that was very difficult. And the level of responsibility that you have, that can take a toll at times. But none of those things I wouldn't give up the experiences that I had. It was just an absolutely phenomenal career. I really enjoyed it.
So if we take you back in a time machine and we were to drive back in time, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, was there a dream career you always dreamed of doing?
I was a big dreamer, and I always wanted to be a writer. When I was in junior high school, I used to write Laverne and Shirley and Happy Days episodes for fun. And I wrote a full movie when I was in high school. So that's always sort of been in the back of my mind that has pushed me as a looking for new experiences just so I can write about them. And so when I retired from the FBI in 2018, I had prepared, probably 10 years or more, because I've always written in my lifetime. But now I'm working on developing television shows and writing a book, and I'm doing a podcast, which is all storytelling. So that was one thing that I always wanted to do, was tell stories, but I had to go out and find the experiences to talk about.
So awesome that, I encourage people now to look back on their past when they're in elementary school to see if there's a theme or even overlapping themes or even characteristics or qualities that people have that they can, extract and maybe put it in their career. But you've taken this to an encore career, and and writing was there when you were young, and now you've taken it on to your second passion in life. So that's an amazing thing when you look back and see what your dreams were as a kid. So
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
What, I know you worked in many functions in the FBI, but what was a typical day like? I'm sure, with every career, everybody always says, well, it just depends on the day. But, like if you walk us through, because I love doing preceptorships, and I think it's so critical for people to do those if they think they want to be something. But, it'd probably be hard to do a job shadowing in the FBI because of security clearances and stuff like that. So we have this unique experience where I can ask you, if somebody gets up with you in the morning, you were an FBI agent, they leave the office with you, what does that day look like?
Gosh, you never know what your day is going to look like. So for people who need structure and they need to have the routine, this is definitely not a job for you. So I'll talk about when I was an agent, because when I was an executive, it was completely different. But as an FBI agent, you have an idea as to what your day was like. I was very fortunate to work at a local police department, the Westminster Police Department, working Asian organized crime in a district called Little Saigon in Orange County, California, which was the largest population of Vietnamese people outside of Vietnam. So my day would start going to the department, and I sat in one big room with 3 detectives and a DA investigator and a support person. And really, we would look at the day. What are we going to do today? You could be out on surveillance one day. You can be wiring up an informant the next day. So it really just depends. But if something comes through the door, and it happened many times, there was somebody who was going to get killed because he owed $40,000 to a loan shark. So that kind of took precedent over, keeping that person alive that day. So you just never know. Sometimes you're doing search warrants, sometimes you're going out to arrest somebody. So really, it just depends on where you are in your investigation. If you're just starting a new investigation, you're probably sitting at your desk going through bank records or other types of evidence that may help you solidify your case.
Wow. Yeah. Sounds pretty intense for sure, and definitely unique. What does somebody do? Because you mentioned the qualifications that you needed to have before you apply for the FBI, but what can a young person do to start working on this? You mentioned judgment being one of them that they have to have as a FBI. You mentioned a clean slate, making right decisions even when you're young, but how can somebody be developing physically and mentally if this is something that they want to pursue?
So I would say staying in good shape because you have to pass a physical fitness test before you go into the FBI. And a lot of people who have dreamed their entire lives of being FBI agents, they always come to me and they ask me the same question. And I say, follow your passion. If the law is your passion and you want to be an attorney, go be an attorney. If you want to be a zookeeper, if animals are your passion, go be a zookeeper. Because when you're interviewed for the FBI, they want to hear about your leadership and your judgment and how you've collaborated with people. So they have different questions that they ask you during the interview process. And if you're not passionate about what you're doing before you get into the FBI, you're not really going to be able to interview well, because if you say, well, I did this or I did that, as opposed to having this intense passion for what you've done, that's definitely going to help you through the interview process. And you also have to think that, so many people don't make it into the FBI. You want to do something that you're passionate about just in case, for whatever reason, you don't get in, and then you can continue to enjoy what you're doing.
Love the advice. It's for a lot of the high profile careers out there. I've had a chance in this role as a podcast host to interview a lot of different people from really cool walks of life that have either talked about the NFL, the NBA, acting, opera, ballet, you name it, where if you look at the statistical amount of people actually working in that career, it's very low. Correct? Like you said, 1% of people actually make it out of the process, and even a lesser degree make it to the NFL or the NBA. And so we got to have that backup plan. What is your passion? What is your purpose? And how can you translate that into the marketplace to go win? And I love that you talked about that. Just pursue something that you enjoy doing, and then you can always come back later to this dream that you have in mind if you don't make it to the next level. So if you don't make it to be a big time actor, you have something else in your pocket that you're working towards. Love it. Love it. So you mentioned you retired in 2018, and you mentioned a little bit about writing and podcasts. What are you doing now? What do you tell us about your show, your books?
So, okay. So I'm writing. I can't really tell you about the television shows that I'm writing about.
Sure.
We're still trying to get them developed and purchased by a network. So I'm still working on that. But usually what I like to write about are strong female characters in law enforcement. So, I use the stories, the experiences that I have had. And I'm doing a podcast called Lead Like a Lady. And if someone would have accused me of leading like a lady when I was a brand new agent, I think I would have been offended like that, by that. But what it means to me is that, sometimes when women are working in male-dominated fields, they take on the characteristics and the leadership traits of the people who are around them. And for me, only, like I said, 14% of the agents were women when I went into the FBI in 1996, and when I left in 2018, only 20% of all agents were women. So the podcast that I have, it focuses on these remarkable women who have made it to the top in male-dominated industries, and the more I rose up the ladder, the more I used my feminine skill sets, my leadership skill sets, and I became more of an authentic leader because I became more confident within myself and in my leadership abilities. So I kind of used the soft leadership skills like collaboration and, my good judgment and communication and things like that, building relationships. And the more I used what was sort of inherent into who I was as a leader, the more I would shine. So that's what my podcast is about, is for women and men, because there are a lot of great tips. I have a bunch of firefighters in Los Angeles listening to the podcast, but really we bring in these remarkable women and talk about how they lead authentically.
So awesome. Now, if some people are out there listening and they want to know more about this, where do they go to find your show?
They can listen through their favorite podcast provider or go to GinaLOsborn.com, and you can learn more about me. I'm also an executive coach, and I do a variety of different things. So yeah, please visit me at my website. And I also have a free gift for your listeners, Zach. If you go to my website, GinaLOsborn.com, you can download 2 free ebooks. One is Eliminating Chaos from Your Business and Your Life, and the other one is tips on being a woman in a male-dominated field and how to lead authentically.
So awesome. Thank you so much for that kind invitation. And so what we'll do, guys, is we'll put this into the comment section in the YouTube video for you guys if you want to follow Gina, and definitely check out her podcast, what she's doing out there. I think it's pretty motivating. So let's get to some of the questions that came in from the audience and see if we can answer these. So the first question that comes in says, I'm a police officer right now. My passion is detective work. So according to this interview, you would have me go on, try to be a detective, and then later on, if I wanted to pursue the FBI, that's a route I could possibly go. Is this correct information?
So I would say, I don't know how long you've been a police officer or how long it takes to get to become a detective in your department, but you really only need 3 years experience, but you have to also know that you're going to be competing with 30 to 35-year-olds as well. So I would say continue down your path and learn as much as you possibly can as a police officer and a detective. And when you feel that you are competitive based on your leadership experience and your law enforcement experience, then I would say go to FBI.gov and put in.
Next question comes in, is there academic requirements such as a GPA, minimum amount of GPA you have to have as a college student? And next question comes in, is there an academic test you have to take in the application process?
So I would assume that you have to have I'm not really sure about that. As far as a GPA, they're not looking for a 4.0 for sure, because that's going to be a while back if you're 31 years old or older. But again, we do have agents coming in their 20s as well. So I don't think that's as much of something that they're going to be looking at. They're going to be looking more at your experience. They're going to be looking more at the things that you've done in your life that makes you a whole person, not just specifically one thing.
Gotcha. Next question that comes in says, do people go back and get their degrees? Have you seen that happen where they've got the amount of work experience, then they go and get a degree and then apply?
Yes, in fact, that's what I did. I got my first 2 years of college, and then I went into the Army, and it took me about 4 years to get the rest of my education because I was on the road so much. So yes, so it's not a conventional, you go to high school, you go to college, and then you do your 3 years experience, and then you go elsewhere. There are people, like I said, who have gone out and gotten their PhDs, and so they have limited experience than someone like me who was chasing spies across Europe when I was 21 years old. But I didn't get my degree until later. So, it just, what they're looking at, like I said, is the whole person and how you can contribute to the FBI mission.
And the last question, it's a little unique one, not a career question, but I found it interesting, so I'll ask. How accurate is the Silence of the Lambs movie with Clarice Starling as an FBI agent?
I don't want to ruin it for people, but we, we do not allow our FBI Academy students to carry a gun outside of the firearms part of the class. So unfortunately, no. But that's one thing about Hollywood. They sprinkle the fairy dust to make it more interesting. I don't know if following me around in any given day was worth good television.
This is one of my favorite movies, so that's why I wanted to ask. So we won't ruin it for you. Just go watch it and enjoy it. Don't look at it through that lens.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely great cinema.
Well, Gina, this has been great. I really appreciate it. You coming on and informing our audience about your former career, and also the cool things you're doing with your new podcast, as well as the ebooks that you have for my audience. We really enjoyed this. Thank you for coming on, giving back your time, and helping people find careers they love. And you'll be a part of our career library. This episode will be uploaded in there. We do appreciate this great information, along with a fascinating career, both then and now.
Thank you so much, Zach. It's been fun.
Have a great day.